Hey guys, my name is Moon and welcome back for more Umineko When They Cry, episode 5. So last time we got a new game master for the 5th game. Beato was incapacitated because of the events of the 4th game and she's pretty much a shell now. So Lambda Delta took over as the new game master. And they said we're pretty much starting on the 2nd game already. But it seems like in this scene, we went back for a flashback, I think. And we also got introduced to a new character. At least not introduced fully yet, but shown. The character said that Natsui Ushiromiya, you are the culprit, right? So, what's that about? We're gonna find out. So let's see, let's continue. As she knocked loudly and repeatedly, Natsuhi yelled. Shortly after, there was a heavy clunking sound and the sound of the door to the Kinzo study unlocking could be heard. As the door opened, a heavily sweat venomous odor flowed out. Natsuhi was always ashamed of how she automatically grimaced at that, even though she thought it rude to the family head. Kraus was waiting for her inside the study. Natsuhi flew into his arms. Oh, so this is the moment he died, I guess. Yes. With uncertain gait, Natsuhi walked towards the center of the study, supported by Kraus. So this is it. They're showing it to us literally in the 1st episode, or yeah, early in the 5th episode. I mean, they're a dignified bed fitting for the Ushiromiya family head. It could be seen along with Nanjo, Genji, and Kumasawa-san.
Nanjo-sensei. Otou-sama.
After sighing deeply, Nanjo left the side of the bed. On the bed, Kinzo could be seen lying down asleep. He died peacefully. Okay. He died without any regrets. Okay. I was correct. But the nice thing about this is, yeah, pretty much confirmed that Kinzo is really dead. And they're just, yeah, telling the people that he is alive. Sobbing, Natsui slumped over the chest of that man who had fallen into a sleep which he would never awaken. So, yeah, this as well. Another, what do you call this? A confirmation for, remember when Natsui was talking to Kinzo in the, was it 1st episode? And then Kinzo was talking to her, saying that you are an Ushiromiya in your heart, or something like that. But yeah, something like that. It was a nice scene, a good scene for Natsuhi then, but in reality, it did not happen and it was fake. It was only in her head. Damn.
Okusama, douka shikkari. Otou-sama. Otou-sama.
This is just too sudden, so meaning probably a couple days earlier he was normally walking around, still standing, right? And then something happened, I guess, right? And then yeah, he died without any regrets. Genji. Natsuhi couldn't stop crying over the death of the man whom she had loved like a second father. Kumasawa rubbed Natsuhi's back, consoling her. Kraus slumped into his late father's favorite chair. By sitting there, he might have been immersed in memories of this or his departed father. Or perhaps he thought by sitting there he might be able to understand just a bit of the madness Kinzo's later years, which he had never been able to comprehend before. And Nanjo, just as he had when Kinzo once sat in that chair, contemplating a chess move, turned his back and looked down over the outside world through a crack in the curtains.
同じ死ぬならせめて寝込んで1年後に死亡とか
If only he'd been sick in bed for a year or so first.
もう少ししかるべき準備の猶予期間を設けてから死んで欲しかったのね
So yeah, technically what they're saying is he just died suddenly. And what Kraus is saying, if they had seen Kraus maybe, become sickly for a year, like him not moving anymore, right? So it would have been, how do I say this? They would already know that he was going soon, is what I'm saying. But I guess what happened was he just died suddenly.
それは逆だ最後の瞬間までお元気だったことを喜ぶべきです
He was in high spirits until the very end.
建前上はそうなるがね
Nanjo understood that as well. Ushirimiya Kinzo, who had risen like a comet and glittered like a supernova in the post-war business world, had died. His funeral would probably be a fantastic scale. And it would be also the ceremony marking Krause's inheritance of the headship. He would have to arrange everything as the host of the event, carry out the funeral diplomacy perfectly, and make it clear to all that the Ushirimiya family still had the enormous influence in the political and financial spheres. As Nanjo watched Kraus, he was vividly reminded of the time when Kinzo had been suddenly selected as the Ushirimiya family head. When Kinzo had been lost and confused, in this way he was able to understand Kraus's distress and sympathize with it. Natsuhi's sobs eventually subsided. Watching this and leaving Kumasawa to care for Natsuhi as a fellow woman, Genji returned to where Kraus was. And as though asking what should be done, Genji lowered his head slightly.
手続き等は私と源氏さんでやろう
Okay.
クラウスさんはまずは親戚の方々に連絡した方がいいでしょうな
Kraus, with his hands still over his eyes, did not respond. Perhaps even though he had known this day would come, Kraus really couldn't hide his shock at how suddenly it had reached him.
私と南條先生にお任せを旦那様はまずは奥様とご相談いただくのが良いかと思います
Maybe she heard that, or maybe it was a coincidence. As though responding to Genji's words, Natsuhi came over. Her eyes were red from crying too much, but she apparently understood the heavy responsibility that had been imposed on them even better than Kraus did.
これからはあなたが栄光ある後宮家の当主です。お父様の後を立派に継いだことを内外に示しましょう。
So first, last time it was the new game master. This time, the new head.
この夏日、あなたの妻として棺を並べる日までお仕えする覚悟です。
But yeah, I do wonder though, whose idea was it for them to just hide Kinzo, right? But yeah, because look at this, Natsui is saying that yes, everyone should see that you are the new head, right? You are the head now. Was it Kraus's plan? Trying to encourage her husband, who was overcome with shock, Natsui lent him some reassuring words. When Kraus finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face, he looked up at the ceiling with a blank expression and let out a deep, deep sigh.
どうかしっかり。お父様の残したものを食い荒らそうと目論む輩が大勢いるのですよ。私たちはお父様の名誉と財産を守るために戦わなければなりません。それが後宮家当主の最初の仕事ですよ。
分かってる。分かっているとも。
南條先生と源氏はお役所や葬儀業者への手配をお願いします。
But is it listed here though? How he... No, it's not listed here. A rabid fan of the occult.
特に源氏。 お父様の葬儀にふさわしいものとなるよう特に手配を頼みますよ。
かしこまりました。
I wonder though if what do you call this? If he had a what do you call this? Ceremony, right? For his burial. I wonder where it would happen. Would it happen in the island? Would it happen in, I guess, yes, the mainland? I do wonder, but probably it's gonna be in Rokinjima, right? If they ever did that.
それから南條先生、お父様は病院でお亡くなりになったわけではないので、
Indeed.
場合によっては解剖が入るかもしれませんな。
Would you even do an autopsy still? I mean, it's for the family, right? No, I mean, if it's something like this, like, would you still do an autopsy? Like, he just died like this. It's not like, I don't know.
なんとかなりませんか。亡くなったとはいえ、お父様の大切なお体です。傷をつけるなど耐えられることではありません。
気持ちはわかる。
I mean, I guess, so you can say the cause of death, right?
だが、そういうところをきっちりすることも大切だ。それに、こう言ってはなんだが。
I mean, usually when people just die like this, they're always saying like just, yeah, lived his life, or he lived at the end of his life, his full life. Technically, yeah, he just had a heart attack and then he died. Maybe a heart attack when he was sleeping, right? And that was it.
難しい親族の方々が多いんじゃないかね。
Who knew how these vultures, after the inheritance, might try to find fault with them? They might claim to find or found some reason to suspect the cause of death, using that as a point of contention to start some trouble. Okay. Right now, it was important not only to pay Kinzo's remains the respect they were due, but also to solidify the position of the new family head, Kraus.
わかりました。必要最小限にお願いします。
But yeah, I think people would do suspect it. If Kinzo was walking, he was still talking normally, let's say a week ago, and then now suddenly he just died. I guess maybe people would suspect that why would he just die like that, right? Yeah.
間違ってもお父様の威厳が損なわれるようなお姿にしないように。
それは大丈夫だ。安心しなさい。とにかく金蔵さんのことはわしらに任せて、夏日さんはクラウスさんのそばにいてあげなさい。これからが大変なんだから。
分かっています。あなたもどうかしっかり。
Kraus was still staring blankly at the ceiling with a befuddled expression on his face. She understood the shock and heavy responsibility he bore. Yeah, I think the intense pressure, right? Instantly. Sure, you knew that you were gonna be the successor anyways, but yes, there was no preparations. I mean, because Kinzo just suddenly died. If Kinzo was just sick, let's say he was still alive, but he was let's say bedridden for a year and then he was slowly dying, you could have slowly had preparations to becoming the successor. But for Kraus, it was instant. He died, and then the immense pressure of, yes, having that responsibility instantly just come now. I mean, I guess it's very heavy. Natsuki understood her husband's feelings as much as anyone.
親族への連絡は私がします。今だけは休まれてください。
Kraus did not respond. Natsuki, thinking him to be just a bit unreliable at the moment, decided she must offer her support. Seeing her husband like this actually spurred Natsuki to action, and a resolute expression rose to her face.
これから忙しくなります。今できることを始めましょう。夫はきっとお父様と二人きりで話したいこともあると思います。私たちは一度ここを退出しましょう。
そうでございますね。
Shio, But where's Canon and Shannon, by the way? Why they're not here? I thought they would be here.
その時間はきっと今しか取れないでしょうから。
Maybe they'll show up later, right? Being in charge of a funeral is tiring work. There's no time to shed tears. If Kraus were ever to be given time to cry for his dead father, the time would have to be now. Everyone agreed with Kumasawa's words. Even so, Kraus continued to blankly gaze up at the ceiling and did not respond in any way. Natsui urged the servants to go.
私はジェシカにも話してきます。
Jessica?
今やあの子が次期当主です。それにふさわしい自覚を持つようによく言い聞かせなくては。
待て。
Mate. Okay, here we go. It's this time now. As they each started to make their way out of the study, Kraus finally spoke. They stopped walking.
はい。
待て。
はい。
Hadn't she already stopped walking just like her husband had asked? But despite that, he told her once again to wait. From those slightly weak words, Natsui understood that it probably stopped her because he wanted to be by his side, or he wanted her to be by his side.
お前たちは下へ。私は夫と言います。何かあったらここに電話するように。
かしこまりました。だから待てと言っている。
When Kraus suddenly raised his voice, everyone jumped and turned around. Unable to comprehend what she had done to spark her husband's wrath, Natsui ran up to him.
どうしましたあなた。私は何か失礼なことを口にしてしまいましたか。
Yeah, what is Kraus's thought process here, right now?
だったらお許しを。
いや、違う。そうじゃない。そうじゃない。
I mean, I can guess yes, as we were saying earlier, the immense pressure, right? But would you even think about that?
少し待て。時間をくれ。
ええ、分かっています。心を整理するためにも必要です。
Okay, is there a timeline here, by the way? What date it is? Well, no date? Okay, so we don't really know when this happened.
私たちはその時間をあなたにあげようと、ここから静かに出ていくだけですよ。
だからそれを待てというのだ。いいか、誰もその場から動くな。
No one move.
一歩たりともだ。疲れたなら、椅子にでもソファーにでも好きに座ればいい。だから何も喋らずに静かに黙って、何もせずにいろ。
Those unreasonable words felt like a glimpse of how Kinzo used to be. Natsui couldn't hide her slight surprise at this behavior, which almost made it seem as though Kinzo had possessed her husband. Natsui told the servants to wait for the time being. She ordered them to sit on the sofa a short distance off, approached her husband, and spoke to him in a small voice.
あなたのお命じになれば、夏日はいくらでも待ちます。とどまります。ですからどうか、お気を鎮められてください。
違う。そうではないのだ。そうではないのだ。
Was it really blood, or was he actually possessed? What? Krause's disorderly style of speech strongly resembled Kinzo. Oh, okay. As she watched this, Natsui became certain that Krause was Kinzo's son after all, and that he was the true successor, more suitable than any other person.
夏日、こっち。
Krause stood up and headed towards the window, trying to lengthen the distance between himself and the servants waiting on the sofa by even a small amount. Natsui realized that he must have something secret to discuss.
はい、あなた、何事ですか？
親父に死なれてはまずいのだ。
I mean,
しかし、もうお亡くなりになりました。そういうわけには参りません。
I mean, anyone dying, of course, is bad.
そうじゃない。
Unless that person is really evil.
今はまずいんだ。
I mean, Kinzo is kinda as well, right? But still.
どういうことですか？
親父の財産を担保にしている。
I've been putting father's fortune up as a collateral.
相続問題になれば隠しをせない。
はあ。担保ですか？いかほど？
Yeah, how much?
メロディーランドの時、近藤君を応援したことがあっただろう。
We're getting new names now, but I don't think we're gonna see these people. Kondo-kun, Melodyland.
あの方とは縁を切れと申し上げたじゃありませんか。私には断ったと言ったはず。どうして？
男の義理というものがある。
There is such a thing as a man's honor. Man.
断れなかった。
This dude. Man's honor. Okay. Kraus claimed to hold honor as a virtue. I mean, sure, yes, that is good, but what I mean is... You put your whole inheritance as a collateral for that? Come on. I mean, it's not... Yeah, it's not for him to give it, though. However, Natsuhi knew that he most often used this as an excuse for when he reluctantly went along with some deal that just he couldn't refuse. True, you could say that that is just an excuse, right? It's a man's virtue, man's honor.
お金に余裕があるならいざ知れず、この島のリゾート計画でかなりの借金をされたのではありませんでしたか？
Turn this island into a resort.
ああ、したさ。方々で恩人に世話になったのだ。
So now he need to repay those people as well.
それらを返済するためにも座しているわけにはいかない。返済するためには金がいる。金を生むためには金がいる。金がなければ始まらない。この島の計画だって企画会社がおかしなことにならなければ順調だったのだ。都の役人とも連携は取れていた。
I made contact with a government official in the city.
東京都の新しい観光スポットになると知事の太鼓判ももらえていた。私の根回しは完璧だったのだ。
Tokyo Metropolis.
たまたま巡り合わせとタイミングが悪かった。ちょっとした運のすれ違い。
Didn't remember when NJ was in Rokinjima in 1998, defense said Tokyo Metropolis. So it was already possessed by, I guess, yes, other people. At that time, I mean.
事故みたいなものだった。
あれは事故なんかではありません。詐欺です。あなたは騙されたのです。初めから彼らはこの島のリゾート計画など描けていなかったのです。
そんなことはないぞ。土方君のビジョンは先見性にあふれていた。世界と未来に目を向けた広大な視野は私が夢だと信じていたものなど猫の額ほどの広さしかないことを教えてくれた。夢が広がる。世界に未来に。夏日も一緒に聞いていただろう。
ええ、聞いていました。そしてお帰りになられた後に申し上げたはずです。
I mean, people are salesmen. And yeah, if they... Sometimes they're just really good at talking.
あの方はうさんくさい。
Yeah.
語るのは未来ばかりで地に足がついていない。これ以上お付き合いしてはならないと。
土方君は立派な好青年だ。
So Kraus is easily... He easily believes people, I guess. That's his problem.
彼の生き様からは学ぶことも多いぞ。彼は若いが尊敬できる。彼のことを侮辱することは許さんぞ。
あなたは同じことを月旅行の時にもおっしゃいました。
Whole moon tourism? What do you mean whole moon tourism?
先見性がある、未来がある、夢があると連呼され、その挙句はいかがでしたか？荒唐無稽な話だったとあなた自らがお認めになったではありませんか。私はNASA の高官とか名乗るおかしな男が現れた頃からこれは絶対におかしいと確信しておりました。
A strange man showed up claiming to be a high-ranking NASA official? Moon tourism. What?
あれはあの外国人が国際的な詐欺師だったに過ぎない。あの件については私も曽根崎氏も被害者だ。
Sonezaki. Remember Sonozaki?
彼の先見性は今をもって間違っていない。将来必ず世界の大富豪が宇宙旅行をたしなむ時代が訪れる。
Develop a liking for space travel. But yeah, in people today, yeah, they were right. They're going to space technically, and it's so expensive. Just go up. It's not like you're going to the moon. You just go up.
そしてその最初の事業は民間医者によって独占されるだろう。着眼点は間違っていない。それを利用して世界中の投資家を騙している国際的な詐欺集団がいて、
曽根崎という男もその一味だったと申し上げているのです。あなたはどこまでお人よしなのですか。どうしていつもうさんくさい話を疑いもせずに乗ってしまうのですか。
So I guess now we're seeing why Kinzo was saying Kraus is weak, right? He was weak because of this. He easily believes people, even the suspicious ones.
訂正しろ。曽根崎氏は優秀な未来ある男だ。うさんくさくなどない。
Yeah, look at this. Every time he talks about the people, he's like, he's a man with a brilliant future ahead of him. And then earlier, the guy said, even though he was young, I respect him. Yeah, everyone he just believes.
彼の語る夢は未来を先取りしているからこそ、それが見える者には妄想にしか見えんだけだ。
He's really bad as a head of the family because he would just lose everything.
女のお前には未来など見えん。
ええ、女の私には未来など見えません。でも現在なら見えます。私の目の前で狡猾な二枚舌の詐欺師たちに丸め込まれ騙されてなお妄信している哀れな夫の姿なら見ることができます。
True.
黙れ。お前には金も事業も経済も何もわからん。夫の仕事に口は出すな。妻は家事だけをしてればいい。お前は黙っていろ。
Without another word, Nazi fell silent just as Kraus had hoped she would. She was already far beyond anger and sadness, and the emotions that lay on the other side of those was an almost indifferent pity. Kraus, who had been in awe of Kinzo since he was very young, had started to subconsciously admire the way his father lived. Without realizing it, he had come to believe that he could only be recognized as a man in his own right if he surpassed his father. However, Kinzo had been a mad genius, the likes of which had never been seen before in the Oshinomiya family's long history. The talent was a gift from heaven, and it definitely wasn't genetic, much less something that could be learned. So I think for Kraus, he just wanted to... That's why he believes a lot of this stuff, because if this actually works out, maybe Kinzo would recognize him, right? And maybe he can surpass him someday because of that. But in reality, Kraus was just, getting swindled, taken advantage of. I think Kraus is just a good guy, yeah. But, of course, there are faults as well. He just believes too much, and I guess maybe that's how this started again. Or this is, I guess, one of the reasons their family was falling. And it was not just him that needed money. It was all of them. But if he didn't need money in the first place, I guess this situation where they had to hide Kinzo's body or tell the people that he was still alive wouldn't have happened, right? It might have been a different outcome if he was just smart, even if a little bit. To give the two of them a chance to talk alone, Natsuki told the servants not to tell anyone about Kinzo's death, and they left the room for the time being. Oh, so this is their bedroom, right? Then she invited Kraus to her bedroom. and made him tell her everything about their current financial situation. But yeah, they're husband and wife and they're not sleeping in the same room? What? Like even Ava and Hideyoshi, right, are sleeping in the same room. Okay. There were things that Natsu hadn't been told about under the assumption that a woman had no business knowing. Natsu had herself made a point of avoiding this area in the past, thinking that it wasn't a wife's place to intrude on such matters. However, this also meant that she had abandoned her duty as a wife to protect her family. The depths of this sin had been made quite clear to Natsuhi. Kraus was probably tired of trying to defend himself. Perhaps because he had gotten a headache, he hid his face and sank into silence. Natsuhi noticed the water in the electric kettle was boiling and stood up to refill her cup with black tea. When she touched the cup of black tea, she noticed for the first time the sound of the cup and the saucer clinking together told her that her fingers were shaking. Kraus had built up a large debt to obtain funds for his various projects and to cover the losses when they failed. Of course, he had to put the mansion and property as collateral. However, doing such a thing above board would result in the mortgage being registered. In other words, there would be a record that Kraus had put Kinzo's wealth up as a collateral to obtain a loan without anyone's permission. True. Kinzo, Ava, and the others must not learn of such a thing. Therefore, Kraus had been putting those assets up as a collateral using the worst possible method.
権利書と委任状を預けた。
Damn, this dude.
それは
What Kraus was saying probably meant that he had in essence signed away the rights to his assets. If these assets had been used as collateral for a loan, then Kraus would still have some leeway under the law. He would have to deal with a bank which would have absolutely no compassion. But they would be able to work something out within the rules set by society. However, signing away the deed and power of attorney was a whole different story. True. He had already signed it? Is he stupid, man? In other words, even the mansion they were living in, if the person holding the deed were to decide to ignore this agreement with Kraus and sell the mansion to a third party right at this moment, they would have no recourse whatsoever. True. They would have to leave. Far from using collateral for a loan, this was basically the same as selling their house to borrow money. This guy.
つまり
Idiot.
後宮家の生殺与奪は金貸したちの手に委ねられていたわけですね。
Yeah, true.
彼らがほんのわずかの気まぐれを起こして突然この家を売り払ったら
Yeah, they're gonna be homeless now.
私たちは今すぐにも荷物をまとめ出ていかなくてはならないということですね。
理屈上はそうだ。だが、取引の相手はいずれも社会的信用のある人物ばかりだ。
Very reputable.
サラ金じゃないぞ。経済人同士の信用取引だ。私も相手を信用している。
I trust them.
相手だって、私に金を貸すことで私が大きな事業を成功させ、投資した額が大きくなって帰ってくることを信用している。委任状を預けたのは、私の誠意と事業の絶対の成功を疑わないからだ。ここで渋ったらどうなる？自分の事業に自分で自信が持てないことになるだろう。
If you were such a successful businessman, we wouldn't be in debt now, would we? True. Natsu only barely stopped herself from saying that.
お父様は亡くなりました。
God damn. Now we see how messed up the situation they are now. For this or for them to hide, yes, Kinzo's body.
するとどうなりますか？あなたの借金が白日の元となり、他の兄弟たちに咎められることになるわけですか？
それだけでは済まない。多分、刑事訴訟にも及ぶだろう。
Criminal charges?
刑事訴訟？どうしてですか？
Because he's been using the assets, right?
君は知らない方がいい。とにかく、 絶対にこのことを誰にも知られてはならんのだ。
What? I mean, I think yes, right? Because he's been using Kinzo's assets basically without any of his permission. Kraus looked at the floor shamefully, shaking his head over and over. If it would come to criminal charges, then he must have broken some laws. He's probably been so intent on raising a large sum of money that nothing had mattered to him but survival. Kraus had seriously believed that he would succeed with several businesses and that he would definitely gain huge profits. So he had figured that even if he stepped over a few legal lines, he would be able to pay everything back before too long and pretend the whole thing had never happened. Dismay gave Bind the factor? What? That lessened his resistance towards breaking a couple of laws. And now Kinzo's death, the worst possible thing had occurred, and they wouldn't be able to keep it all hidden for so long.
私たちはどうなるのですか？
心配することはない。君は信じてくれんな。景気は今確実に上向いているんだ。私が都心で投資した不動産価値はみるみる上昇している。今それらを統合して巨大ビジネスタワーを建設する計画が進んでいる。これは私のこれまでの投資の中で最も確実で最も大きな成功をしているものだ。
This will be the most reliable of all my investments so far.
ただ、それは身をつけるのにまだ時間をかける。絶対に確実だが、今すぐというわけではないのだ。
その事業の成功は借金を返済するに足りるものですか？
もちろんだと思う。これまでの借金をすべて帳消しにできる。だから信じてくれ。もう少しだけ時間が欲しいんだ。
しかしお父様はもうお亡くなりになってしまいました。もうその時間はないのですよ。
分かっている。
So,
分かっているとも。
yes, they don't have time, but they're gonna have to make time.
だから、どこかから金を調達して今すぐに借金を返さなくてはならない。
But how much is the debt though?
とにかく、金が必要なんだ。金が大量に、今すぐ。うわーうわー
As Kraus roared and clutched at his head, he writhed about as if in pain. As she watched, several emotions swirled about in Natsui's chest. Her emotions conflicted as she felt pity for her husband, while also feeling that he was a fool. And she felt a mixture of resentment and regret towards her own responsibility in letting her husband run wild for so long. Even if this day hadn't come, it should have been clear that they were in a very critical situation. Yes. And yet, he had carelessly waited for this moment to come and was now writhing about it. Her husband was so foolish and pitiful. It would be easy to let herself get fed up with this. However, she was his wife. For a wife, ridiculing her husband as a fool would run in conflict with her responsibilities. If he was a fool, then she would have to support him enough to compensate. However, she didn't have a clue what she should do. Since there had been such a massive amount of money within arm's reach, it was only natural that Kraus had tried to dip his hands into it. It would also be easy to tell him to be a man and give up on all of it, but that would also run in conflict with her responsibilities. So she was Natsui Ushirimiya, the woman who had become Kraus's wife and sworn to support him, the new head of the Ushirimiya family for her whole life. She had somehow helped her husband in his efforts to raise money. She understood it logically, but she couldn't suppress the indescribable dejection that seemed to rise up from the dark depths of her heart.
そうだ。親父の隠し黄金。10トンの黄金なら200億の価値がある。
Is that enough though?
あれさえあれば、 そうそう。あれさえ見つかれば万事は解決する。夏日、あれだ。魔女の碑文だ。あれを解こう。一緒に解こう。黄金さえ見つかれば万事解決なんだ。そうさ。この島のどこかに隠されてるはずなんだ。あれさえあれば、あれさえあれば。
一体あなたやめてください。
Krause, acting as excited as he thought up a perfect, brilliant plan, grasped Natsuhi's upper arms tightly. Natsuhi couldn't help but be dumbfounded. She wasn't just taken aback because she'd heard him bring up something as fake sounding as the hidden gold. This was Krause, who usually mocked the story of the hidden gold, saying that it didn't exist and it was all an illusion his father had created to borrow a lot of money. That was why Natsuhi was doubly taken aback.
そうだ。ジェシカにも協力してもらおう。子供の感性でなら解けることもあるかもしれない。今は一家の一大事なんだ。
This is a family crisis, true though.
みんなで協力し合わなくてはならない。
All of them are in this situation because of Krause.
そうだ。あんなの親父が作った気まぐれな謎なんだ。解けるはずさ。解けないはずがないんだ。それしかないんだ。ああ、夏日、本当に良かった。
And now I think what Krause is feeling, he's having hope now. Like, oh yes, if I can just solve this, I can get the money, right?
まだ手は残っていたんだよ。こんなに身近に。この島に黄金はある。それさえあれば万事解決なんだ。夏日、ジェシカを呼ぶんだ。今すぐここに。家族の危機は家族で乗り越えよう。さあ早く。黄金はこの島にある。すぐ身近にあるんだ。
What? Unable to withstand the pain in the arm he was twisting in his excitement, Natsuhi knocked Krause aside. Krause tripped over the edge of the bed and flopped over onto the floor.
いい加減にしてください。
Yeah, what Krause is doing, for example, in this situation, right? Let's say, yes, you don't know about the gold or anything, it's just a story. Like for Natsuhi, she's thinking, yeah, Krause is just, yeah, he's having no hopes. Like, and he would just believe anything now. Because, yes, he's losing hope, is what I'm saying. And then, now he's thinking about finding the hidden gold that no one knows if it exists or not.
そしてどうか冷静になられてください。後ろ宮家の一大事にそんな夢みたいなことを言い出してどうするというのですか。
夏日。
あなたもよく頭を冷やされて現実的な金策をお考えになってください。
Yeah, look at this realistic plan. Think of a realistic plan.
私も頭を冷やしてきます。
Because if you're in this situation, it like saying that looking for grandfather's gold, it's not really realistic because you don't really know if that even exists or not, right? You don't know. Maybe it's just like a epitaph, right? Or something like that. What do you call this? Just Kinzo put for fun, right? You could think that at this situation, like it was nothing, because there's no evidence that it was real. So Natsuhi's like, yes, think of something realistic that they can do to get the money, not this finding 10 tons of gold, 20 billion yen in an instant.
待ってくれ、夏日。
Maybe he had come to his senses the instant he fell over. Krause tried to tell Natsuhi to stop, but she just kept walking. After closing the door forcefully, Natsuhi dashed away. And then she ran, and then she ran. Okay, so I guess we'll take a little break here for now. But yes, I guess now we can see how they're saying that Krause is a weak. Like how Kinzo said Krause is weak. It's because of that. Yes. he wanted to impress Kinzo so badly that he'd put his whole family technically in debt. Right? The whole island is in debt. Or put as a collateral, I mean. And technically, he even signed off the deeds, right? To the island. So if the person that has it now said that all of you gotta leave now, they had to do it. Or else they would just be forced to leave because it's not technically theirs anymore. This guy, man. This guy. That's why I think we can see in 1998 in episode 4, right, with Enji, that the Oshiromiya is still there. Even though the island, I guess, is not theirs anymore. But it is still existing when Ava was the one, or when she became the head, right? When everyone died, she became the head. Even in 1998, it still existed. So you could say that Ava was really the best successor that the family could have had, rather than Kraus. And even Okonogi said that, right? That Kinzo had thoughts that he had plans to make Ava the successor instead, but then he died, so it did not happen. He suddenly died. He had no regrets and just died. But it's nice seeing this, honestly. Nice to give a background to how do you say this? How they decided to not show Kinzo's body and just hide the fact that he was gone. Natsui? However, neither her husband nor his siblings understand her very well, so her position is far from enviable. Do we have any tips, by the way? Tips? We got nothing. Okay, we got nothing. So, yeah. Take a break here. And we are gonna continue this and do more of Umineko When They Cry, episode 5 in the next one. So I'll just see you then, guys. Bye bye.